And welcome, one and all, back to another episode of the Birds Blast with Kyle Quinn here on the It's a Rap Sports Network with your boy Matty B and my main man Kyle Quinn on the call. Kyle, of course, is the producer of the midday show here on 94 WIP. You can find him on your FM dial every Monday through Friday. Kyle, as we said, kind of leading into the show off camera, nothing to see here. We just have some football to talk about, correct?
Yep, that's right. Just your standard win over the Carolina Panthers. And, really nothing that happened after the game, nothing that's happened this week. Just a regular win, Matt, and that's all I expect to talk about today.
Yeah, me too. And let's get to that. But now, of course, we're going to address the elephants in the room. But we'll wait for we'll have a little build up to that because everyone's expecting it. But we're just waiting. So, Kyle, let's address the 22-16 win over the Carolina Panthers. Not what you would call the most confident building type of games for the Eagles. We talked about it last week. You were not able to commit to a trap game. I was more able to commit to the trap game, but we both had double-digit wins predictions, and neither one of us was correct on that. I want to get your overview of this game right off the bat, and I want to center on a couple of the things that maybe led to some of the drama that happened afterwards. And again, we've talked about that all season, the passing offense. So give me your overview on what happened on Sunday at the Link.
Well, Matt, definitely a little bit trappish. I didn't expect to see that after some of the games that they went into this season where we talked about, is this a trap game? Is this a trap game? This one definitely was trappish, and I think mostly on the defensive side of the ball. I think the offense, there was really issues that had come to light that had been sort of lurking all season long. And this wasn't like one of those games where all the offense just took their foot off the gas or this or that. Like passing offense showed itself really for what it's been for the majority of the season now. But the defense, I thought, it sort of took it a little bit lightly. This was not the best defensive performance, especially for young guy Cooper DeJean, who ended up getting bodied pretty much by veteran savvy Adam Thielen in the slot. And, that'll happen. That's okay, right? That'll happen to a rookie from time to time. Don't expect it to happen too much more often the rest of the season. But look, Bryce Young played a pretty good game. He just did. I mean, he was the better quarterback in that game. He's been a little bit frisky all season long, as we both alluded to on Friday, or the day we did the show before the game. And yeah, I mean, the Eagles, I would describe that as escaped from a win against the Carolina Panthers, which is not really something you want to have happened. But, they did get the win, but a lot more ugliness to come out of that game, obviously, than the good, which was just the fact that they won the game.
Bryce Young, 19 for 34, 191 yards, a touchdown, interception, not earth-shattering by no means, but he was very effective, especially on those third and fourth down opportunities. Adam Thielen, who was my fantasy hero for years. I think we all had Adam Thielen on our fantasy teams. He was just a point getter back in the day. Yeah. 9 receptions and 102 yards receiving, as you mentioned, had his way out there in the young Eagles secondary. And Hubbard, 26 carries for 92 yards and a touchdown. I think we need to definitely mention his contribution to the Carolina offenses. Everything the Panthers did to the Eagles offensively, it worked, except Leggett dropping that ball at the end of the game, which, you know what, sometimes you need a little help from the gods every now and again, and the Eagles definitely got that. Kyle, I agree with all your points, and I do want to center in on, let's go with the defense first. What was the main issue? Was it the young secondary getting kind of exploited by some veteran Carolina Panther receivers? Was it not enough push up front? They got to Young one time for 7 yards. That's pretty pedestrian. So where would you center the problems defensively against the Panthers on Sunday?
Well, it starts up front. I mean, Jalen Carter was his usual dominant self, but nobody else really on the defensive line was holding up their end of the bargain. So I think that's where sort of the trap element comes into play, is that maybe they weren't ready to be as physical as they had been, in the game versus the Ravens, where they knew they had to go in and be the more physical team if they wanted to come out with a win. I think they thought they were just going to be able to go line up against Carolina, and Carolina was going to roll over and just die for them. They did not do that. Carolina was beating them up front, and that's why you saw Chuba Hubbard have a big day. And, I mean, really the only running back that the Carolina Panthers had after Jonathan Brooks went down with that freak injury. That sucked to see for him. But Chuba Hubbard was killing him up front. And then really, it wasn't anybody on Carolina offensively besides Bryce Young and Adam Thielen, just like we said, having his way with Cooper DeJean. That sort of just felt like the thing where, he wasn't like dominating on route running wise, but he was doing that thing where he sort of gets up in his grill, knocks him off his spot, and didn't allow Cooper DeJean to be the one to initiate the contact on him. And Adam Thielen was finding soft spots in the defense. So not a performance defensively that I expect to see next week, not a performance defensively that we've come to be used to from the Eagles. So hopefully it's just one of those situations where they took the Panthers a little bit lightly, which, I don't like to see, but it does happen. And hopefully that's just really the beginning and the end of it there for the defense.
Steve checking in saying Reed Blankenship and Sidney Brown being out with injuries didn't help the defensive struggles either. Steve, I mean, they're just bodies at this point. What reliability has Sidney Brown showed you over the very injury-plagued shortened part of his career that you could plug him in and he would make any type of difference? Not Blankenship. Back in the day, earlier this season, was the only one getting turnovers for the defense. So maybe I'll give you that. But it's just bodies. McCullum, what was it? Tristan McCullum got beat around the field like he didn't know what he was doing out there. I kind of equate him to kind of Reed Blankenship a little bit. I mean, that's sort of the same type of skill level. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
So I don't know, Steve. I don't know about that. Kyle, what do you think? Do you think the lack of Reed Blankenship and Sidney Brown had much to do with that?
So, not Sidney Brown. Blankenship's definitely more of an instinctual player than Tristan McCollum is. So you might have seen him make a play or two against Bryce Young and the Panthers. I think a lot of the issues that they had really just started from up front and Cooper DeJean just, not necessarily being prepared for matching up against a veteran savvy, more physical wide receiver at this point. Adam Thielen's not, he was good when he was in his prime. But really what he is at this point, he's reduced to using his veteran savvy to get open. And that definitely was on display against young Cooper DeJean.
I would take him on my team in a heartbeat. We could use him in the slot. That would be a nice compliment to the Eagle wide receivers. Let's get to the Eagles offense as we got no choice to, Kyle, because it's a three-sided game, and we're going to talk about that third side too. Jalen Hurts, everyone seems to be up in arms about the performance of Jalen Hurts. And of course, everything kind of went haywire after the game, but Jalen Hurts, a very usual type game for him in 2024. 14 for 21 with 108 yards and 2 touchdowns. These are the numbers that Jalen Hurts has been putting up for weeks on end. But again, Kyle, the struggles on the opening drive. The Eagles have not scored a touchdown at all in 2024 on the opening drive. No touchdowns again in the first quarter, and just the constant 3 and outs from the Eagles offense. Very bland attack on the Eagles offensive side of the football. Yes, Saquon got his quietly, but you mentioned something 2 weeks ago with Lane Johnson's comments coming out of the Ravens game with they know the plays. They're calling the plays defensive line. Is this what that might be now, that teams are starting to pick up on certain tendencies and certain things, and they're saying Saquon's going to get his. We're going to allow that. We just can't let him go 255, but we're going to make Jalen Hurts beat us. Is that what teams you think have now relegated themselves to?
I'm not necessarily sure that specifically is the case against Carolina. Sorry, because I just don't think Carolina is necessarily good enough to execute that kind of game plan. What puts this passing performance into perspective is that Carolina is probably the worst passing defense in the NFL. The other thing that makes it so stark, and the reason that we had a terrible and low offensive output, is because the way the Panthers were able to run the ball, control the clock. The Eagles had 8 possessions on offense, right? So they didn't capitalize on as many possessions. They just didn't have enough possessions to capitalize on. And then, of course, the visible frustration from their number 1 wide receiver in A.J. Brown, who, when you look at it, clearly was running around wide open a lot of the time, even over the middle, right in front of Jalen Hurts' face. He's not throwing the ball. So all of that put together, I think, sort of puts this particular Jalen Hurts performance into a different light. Now, it's not to say that it's not close to the norm of what Jalen Hurts has been doing this season. I just think there's a reason that it's come a lot more into focus this week, and it's because of those things.
Now, Kyle, I'll take credit for this because I've been talking this every week. The inability for the Eagles to look down the field, or Jalen Hurts to throw down the field, or the plays to be called down the field, whatever the case may be. 21 pass attempts on Sunday, 3 down the middle. Now in the season, it's up to 325 pass attempts for 45 attempts to the middle of the field. And I did a show Monday night, my daily show, my nightly show, and I highlighted the one thing, the one offensive play that really sums up Jalen Hurts' frustrations in terms of throwing to the middle of the field. And that was that touchdown pass to Devontae Smith in the corner of the end zone at the end of the first half, when literally Jalen Hurts on a pick play by Dotson, which was borderline a pick or not a pick, but whatever, it wasn't called. A.J. Brown was standing there literally wide open. Could have gotten the ball on the line of scrimmage and walked into the end zone with no issues. But if you watch the play slow down, Jalen Hurts never takes his eyes off Devontae Smith from the time he touches the football. And that can be frustrating. And I can understand A.J. Brown's frustrations about that. Now, that's not a play call. That's technique and that's scheme. And you've said it on the show in the past, are the Eagles winning despite the play of their quarterback? And how much can we do now moving down the stretch of this season? And yeah, the hell with the regular season at this point. It's pretty much a foregone conclusion where the Eagles are headed. But can the Eagles win a Super Bowl with a passing attack like this and a quarterback like this?
So I'll give you a comp that popped into my head. And it's not a very flattering one for Jalen Hurts, because I think when you look at the passing game struggles, you can look no further than Jalen Hurts. And we'll get into the whole A.J. Brown thing. I just think you do enough deductive reasoning, it comes down to one guy. It's Jalen Hurts and his inability to throw the ball.
You've said that all season long.
Effective. Yeah. I think a lot of it, he's being gun shy. I think the thing where he's turning the ball over a lot is in his head. He's being more conservative. He's throwing it less. He's taking less shots. When's the last time you saw him throw a deep ball to any of the receivers? It's been a few weeks, right? So clearly that's something that Jalen Hurts, it seems like it's rattling around his brain. Now, where my head goes to, and again, this is not a very flattering comparison, but you remember the 49ers teams before they drafted Trey Lance and before they had Brock Purdy running that offense, they had a guy named Mr. Jimmy Garoppolo, who was pretty much the one thing on that Niners offense that was not dynamic, right? I mean, they had a great run game. They could put 250 on you on the ground at any given game. They had a great defense, right? Tons of weapons. But you saw them win games and, a game or two even in the postseason where Jimmy Garoppolo threw the ball like 10 times. And that reminds me a lot of this Eagles team with Jalen Hurts. And now the reason I make this comp is because it's worrisome that when Jimmy Garoppolo and the 49ers got deeper into the postseason, played against better teams, and had to win a game with Jimmy Garoppolo throwing the football, they couldn't do it, right? They couldn't do it against Patrick Mahomes. They couldn't put enough on the board to allow, a bigger gap between them and the Chiefs when they made their comeback. And then you saw in the 2021 game against the Rams, before the Rams went to the Super Bowl, the Niners were in there and they couldn't throw the ball down the field at all. In fact, Jimmy Garoppolo, when the time came, he did try to push it down the field and the Rams picked it off. So I say that to say it feels like this Eagles offense, with the amount of talent that they have, good enough on the offensive line, the running game, all of that stuff, you have to wonder if they get into one of those situations deep into the season that do we have a Jimmy Garoppolo type problem on our hands? And I definitely worry that they do.
Well, we're paying $1.6 million a game for Jimmy Garoppolo, and I don't think that's what we signed up for based off of everything that I know about the common, ordinary Philadelphia Eagle fans.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But absolutely. Now let's get to it. All right. So with all that and the frustration and whatnot, and AJ not getting his allegedly, AJ gets a little snippy on the sidelines, gets a little snippy at his stall in the locker, and then kind of went away until on courtesy of WIP 94.1 FM on the Brandon Graham show, right? Is that the Players Lounge? What is it called? It's his show, right?
That's Brandon Graham. Yep.
Brandon had some things to say, and do I have it here? I want to play it real quick. Yeah, let's listen to this real quick.
The person that's complaining need to be accountable, and I'm just being honest. You know what I'm saying? Like, and he noticed. He, I don't know the whole story, but I know that one is trying, and I mean, 11 could be a little better with how he responds to things. And they was friends before this. It's like, man, but things have changed, and I understand that because life happens. But it's the business side that we have to make sure that we don't let the personal get in the way of the business, and that's what we got to do better as right now, because we know it's an issue. Everybody's seeing some things, but we need to be able to talk things out as men. You know what I'm saying? But we need to let personal stuff go and let's get right for this game because, man, it's like a lot of stuff.
All right. So let's go into that. First and foremost, Kyle, I don't remember anywhere being a prerequisite that you had to all be best friends in order to win a Super Bowl. And I just want to lay that down right now is that I don't remember anywhere where we all had to be great friends. I don't think Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan talked like 5 words to each other through the dynasty of the Chicago Bulls. So that's not a prereq to win a Super Bowl. But the reason why I mention that, there's a certain level or a certain sect of the Eagle fandom that really wants this team to be like brothers, that really wants for some reason to, and they can't get to sleep at night not thinking that we don't get along with each other. I don't understand that type of that line of thinking. They don't want to, I guess, think that our franchises are as bad as other franchises, but you don't have to be friends in order to win a Super Bowl.
No, I mean, I agree. And I think where that sentiment comes from, a lot of Eagles fans, is think about the one Philadelphia Eagles team that this fan base has seen go all the way and win the Super Bowl. And what the vibe was like on that team, though, we all we got, we're all we need, all that the choreographed dances on the field, like that, I feel like to this fan base feels like the winning formula. And I agree with you that it doesn't necessarily have to be, right? They don't have to be best of friends. They just need to have a functional working relationship. I think where it crosses the line a little bit is when it becomes publicized. Right. This doesn't have to be something where we're involved in. This doesn't have to be something that we know about. Right. Like we don't need to know about A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts' relationship. But guess what? Now we do. And we don't need to know what this team feels about each other. Guess what? Now we do. So I think that's sort of where it crosses the line between what is functional and what's not functional. And clearly what happened this week with the team and with it going public to the media is that it becomes a distraction in the building. And that's because, like we have to do in the media. I mean, you give us that, we're going to talk about it, right? Because we're like, what the hell? It'd be ignorant not to talk about it. But where that becomes a problem is that now it's beyond just Jalen and AJ. It's Saquon Barkley has to get asked what he thinks about Jalen and AJ. Jordan Mailata has to be asked what he thinks about Jalen and AJ. Everybody that have nothing to do with Jalen and AJ's relationship, Nick Sirianni too, they have to be asked about this all the time. And these guys are in the middle of trying to prepare for a game against the Pittsburgh Steelers. That's where that kind of thing becomes detrimental because, I mean, look, whether they can backtrack all they want and tell us all they want about the relationship, and they've never actually come out and said that they're best of friends still anymore, even after all of this. But this clearly has been something that's been going on for a while. I don't think last year they were best of friends, and I mean we saw how that ended up. But a little bit of a different story. The team just wasn't good enough. But this season, I don't think they've been best of friends all year long. Now, where it becomes a problem is that now we know about it, and it had to become a distraction for the rest of the team.
No, and Steve chimes in with, I don't like anyone I work with, and I get through the day perfectly fine. It's called being adult, showing up for work and getting the job done. Yeah, when I was on EOP, everybody hated me on EOP, but I didn't care because I had to go do my job. I don't know why they hated me, but they did. But no, I agree, Kyle, and I agree. Now let's get to Brandon Graham. First of all, were you part of this at all? Were you on the? That's the 6 o'clock.
I wasn't there.
Right?
No,
okay.
That was Brandon Graham show. I'm off the air for a few hours before that.
Right. That's right. That's the 2 to 6 guys. All right. So, all right. When you heard it, Kyle, what were you thinking? Like, what was your first, like what? Like, why did you think? Why are you talking like this, Brandon? What was going on, man?
I couldn't believe it. So I was actually out at dinner while it was happening. So I didn't see it really until I was finished. And then all of a sudden my phone is blown up and I'm like, Brandon Graham of all people? Like, my God, dude, what the hell is going on? And I mean, I was floored that he would even come close to insinuating what he did. And honestly, what I was doing after that was waiting for the backtrack or the clarification, because I know just from that clip, what he said could be interpreted, just that clip alone could have been interpreted a few different ways, right? When he said things change, they were best friends and now things have changed. Now, what I think some people wanted to believe was that by things changed, he meant that, now the relationship is, instead of personal, more professional, which, would be the positive spin on it. But then he did backtrack or clarified. And that made me feel worse because he said, I just made an assumption. I'm like, okay, so he does feel that way. And his assumption matters because he's around them all the time. So clearly, if somebody on their team comes out publicly and says, I assume that they're not the best of friends, that carries a lot of weight. So I wish it didn't have to happen that way. Obviously, we would have been talking more about the content of what AJ said had Brandon Graham not come out and said that, as opposed to, oh crap, they don't like each other, this and that. So it just became a whole firestorm of different things that the team had to deal with now. And like I said, instead of now focusing on the Pittsburgh Steelers, a guy that's on the injured reserve stirred up a bunch of crap that now the coach has to answer for. AJ Brown has to answer for another thing. And it just became a complete mess. So while it's kind of funny in a very like sadistic type of way, it stinks now that you have to have this sort of in the back of your head, and you're like, we have a pretty good team that we have to play coming up here, and if we want to have all of our goals still set in front of us, this can't become a distraction that unravels the team. And everybody has that feeling in their gut right now this week.
Now, last year, it was around this time when, I think it was after the Seahawks game when AJ also had his little tantrum and wouldn't speak to the media at all. And then there was a lot of allegations of AJ as a teammate that were sneaking out of that locker room. Is it possible, based off of what we've now heard from Brandon Graham, that maybe it was Brandon Graham was the the leak last year? Or what does this tell you, Kyle Quinn? And again, we just went over about 5 minutes why you don't have to be best of friends in order to win a Super Bowl. But what does this tell you about the overall character of this football team, as you got one of your defensive leaders, Super Bowl champion, basically saying, you know what, they just got to stop acting like children and get over it.
Yeah, I mean, look, and I think that message on its surface is fine if he said it to Jalen and AJ, or if he said it in front of the team. But it does make you wonder, because you brought up last season. Last season was anonymous quotes left and right. Anonymous quotes left and right. I wonder, just in the back of my head, and this could be a coping mechanism for all I know, is Brandon Graham thinking, this message isn't getting through, I need to make this a bigger deal than it is?
Good point.
And that's where you bring it up to. It almost reminds me of, we're going to cross it a little bit weird here, in this Sixers situation. Remember when Joel Embiid was called out by Tyrese Maxey in the locker room, and that could have been kept privately? Wondering, why was this leaked? Do they think the message didn't get through to Joel Embiid, who was joking about it at the podium, the day before? So it almost makes me wonder, like, why? What's the reasoning behind it? Maybe he just spoke out of turn, but you don't really know Brandon Graham to be that kind of guy. Brandon Graham's usually the positive one, right? Like almost overly positive, I think some people might think. But I think where it becomes different for me is the difference from this year and last year is I actually really like the way that Jalen handled it, that AJ handled it, that even like Jordan Mailata came out and handled it afterwards. I think, and we'll find out Sunday, we'll find out the rest of the season, that they have, because they had the experience of last season, that they're a little bit better equipped to handle something like this. And look, even for Nick Sirianni, like this is a major juncture in the career of Nick Sirianni. I mean, this could cost him his job. If things unravel again, Nick Sirianni's out, because they collapsed 2 years in a row. And if you're Mr. CEO culture guy that doesn't call plays, this is your time. This is what you get paid for. You got to get this thing fixed. So we're going to find out a ton this week if they're focused against the Steelers or if they're not. Whether this thing has way more 2023 vibes, or if it has more like 2021 vibes, where the team was able to rally together around their coach and around their teammates and turn something out of it. So we'll see. But this is a major turning point this week.
And Kellen Moore, actually, just what Steve has to say. It reminds him of when Micah Parsons was saying stupid crap on his pod, then became a distraction in Dallas. Not a good look at all. It's not a good look at all. Regardless of what, the locker room is an inner sanctum. Regardless of what's happening, that stuff stays in there but you're right. I never thought of it that way. Maybe Brandon Graham just said, okay, y'all don't want to listen to me inside the closed doors. Well, you're going to listen now, because everyone's going to be listening. If I say, yeah, you're a good point, man. I mean, I didn't really give that much credence there, but that's a very good point, Kyle, that I'll take under consideration. But Kellen Moore went out and said publicly that he needs to find maybe more ways to get the ball into 11's hands. And now this is the byproduct of what might end up hurting the Eagles. Whatever they've been doing offensively, it hasn't been pretty, but it's been effective, and they've been winning football games. Now, if we put a situation to where now they're forcing stuff back in the air, and Jalen figures now he's got to force the ball into A.J. Brown's hands, or now Kellen Moore is going to start calling more slant patterns, even though we haven't done it all season. He's going to try to make Jalen Hurts throw timing plays in the middle of the field in January or in late December. That could have a definitely boomerang effect on this team.
Yeah, and I think the other interesting thing about that Kellen Moore quote that you brought up is that he immediately followed that with, it's ultimately up to the quarterback to react based on what he sees in the defense. So I agree. I don't think they need to come out this week and force feed AJ Brown, because to be honest with you, I think they'll lose if they do that. I think clearly what we know about this passing offense from this point is that it's not that good. And you're 13 weeks into the season. It doesn't feel like it's going to magically change and become a prolific, 300-yard, 3 passing touchdown performance by Jalen Hurts. And we're not going to see that, right? What they do need, though, is to maximize the opportunities they get when they do need to throw the ball. Jalen needs to be able to see AJ. He needs to see the open guys, and when they need to throw on 3rd and 10, Jalen needs, he needs to be able to do that so they can have the running game be their bread and butter. It should be. It's the best thing they do. It's better than anybody in the league does, right? It's won them 9 straight games. Obviously, things are going to be a little bit different in the postseason, and they might have to get away from it a little more. So I don't need to see them air it out the rest of the season. I do need them to fix the issues that they've had, not like make them great, but I need them to just slightly improve in those areas. And I think things will look a little bit better and will look like a much more balanced, or, at least a less worrisome offense as a whole.
Saquon Barkley, 20 carries for 124 yards, sets the single season Eagles rushing record broken. He breaks LaShawn McCoy's record. So congratulations for Saquon. A very effective afternoon for him. When they needed him, he took over. Last thing about this game before we get to the stat pack, Kyle, Jake Elliott. I mean, it's a situation that he still has a job right now. He's 0 for 5 beyond 50 yards on the season. The Eagles allegedly went for a play there for a punt and a penalty at the end of the game versus giving Jake Elliott an opportunity to kick a field goal, and they didn't want to give the ball back in good field position. Are you surprised, one, where Jake Elliott has gone, and two, are you surprised Jake Elliott's still here?
I'm not surprised he's still here. Definitely a little surprised at how his season's gone so far. To not be able to make a 50-yard or kick is something that has become commonplace in the NFL. Kickers all around even when I was younger, and I'm sure back when you were watching football, Matty Bay, in your dinosaur days, even 40-yard plus field goals were tough ones. But 50 yards, almost like a chip shot for these guys nowadays. So definitely an issue with Jake Elliott there, and you need to be able to trust your kicker in big moments in the postseason. That moment you referenced, where Nick Sirianni punted at the end of the game, I think not only said a lot about where he stands with Jake Elliott, but also a lot about where he stands with this offense. I mean, that's a play that Nick Sirianni used to go for. He used to go for it from that no man's land. 4th and 8. I mean, 8 yards. You got AJ, you got Devontae Smith. Man, if you got a good quarterback there, you let that freaking thing rip, and you put that thing away. So it did say a lot about Jake Elliott. Definitely worried about Jake Elliott. But honestly, while I'm worried that Jake Elliott could sink the season, I think that's a much easier thing to correct. Not Jake Elliott being better, but you can get another kicker in here and try him out. And, Phantom IR Jake Elliott, right? Because you have him under contract, bring him back to camp next season, this and that. I think the much more worrisome problem they need to address is the way that the offense is playing through the air right now. I just think it's a less fixable issue.
Yep. Let's do the Birds Blast stat pack for this game. Eagles were 2 for 3 in the red zone. Wait, am I in the wrong game? I'm on the wrong game, Kyle. 3 for 3 on the red zone. I knew they actually had a good day on the red zone. 3 for 3 on the red zone. Now 29 for 48 on the season, over 60%, which was a positive thing. I mean, at least they put the ball in the end zone when they were down there. First half points, 14. And second half points, 8. 139 first half points on the season, average of 10.6. 203 second half points from an average of 15.6. Kyle, you spoke about it briefly, and this is something that, again, I'm not letting it sneak up on anybody. We talk about it every week here on this program. these slow starts, they're eventually going to come back and hurt this team. And I hope that it's not, because we're moving into the time of the season where there's no more gimmies.
Yeah.
And a problem, or if you mess up, it's going to cost you a season, Kyle. They haven't straightened it out up to this point. Do you have any faith and confidence that they're going to straighten it out going into the playoffs?
No, none whatsoever. But at this point in the season, it feels almost like a lost cause, which sucks to say. I mean, that could be a very fatal flaw for the Eagles. Like, look, you were lucky you were playing the Carolina Panthers Sunday. Yeah. You're playing the Lions. And the way your defense was playing that day, because I think that was also a shock to the system for everybody, that they're not going to be, just struggle in the first quarter, and all of a sudden, and they're going to be right in the game just because the defense plays great. The defense didn't have its best game. That's going to happen. You're playing the Lions. You got 21 on your head before you can even blink. So I don't expect it to be fixed. You just kind of that's something you just kind of have to hope and pray that doesn't come back to bite them in the postseason or a really important game. Like, it's been 13 weeks. It doesn't ever seem like it's going to get fixed this season.
The Eagles were 7 for 40 on penalties. They committed 7 penalties for 40 yards, 75 for 513 now in the year, about 6 penalties and 40 yards per game. That's definitely a trend and heading in the wrong direction with the penalties. The Eagles forced 1 turnover, which is positive. Now 15 on the year. They didn't commit any more turnovers, now 11, but now we're coming to the understanding that the reason why they're not committing turnovers is because the quarterback's not being aggressive.
Yeah.
So you can look at that two different ways. They did allow 4 sacks for 25 yards. Jalen's been sacked 36 times now for 250 yards, about 3 times a game for 19 yards. We can go back and forth about the sacks. Are they covered sacks? Are they the quarterback holding on the football too long kind of sacks, Kyle? There's definitely a case to be made for a lot of that stuff. But and let's talk about the offensive line. The offensive line, who does an amazing job run blocking play after play after play. Are they this bad at pass blocking, or are they being made to look a lot worse than they are by their quarterback?
They're being made to look a lot worse by the quarterback. There's no team in the NFL. The Eagles are dead last in this category, where the most time to throw and the sack rate to accompany it. You're not going to tell me that a team with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith can't get open in 5 seconds.
Yep.
Especially on Panthers corners. The quarterback's got to let the ball rip. He has to get the ball out of his hands. These are 100%, no doubt in my mind, Jalen Hurts sacks.
They got to Bryce Young, as I mentioned earlier, 1 time for 7 yards. They've now sacked opposing quarterbacks 37 times for 232 yards. And the Eagles were 0 for 0 on 4th down. The Eagles did not have to go for it on 4th down. 13 for 21 on the season at 62%. Kyle, me and you both had the Eagles in this game. I had them winning 42-20. You had them winning 27-16. So you were closer. We both had Saquon Barkley as our MVP. I mean, I'm okay with going with Saquon. He did have over 120 yards rushing, and he was he did kind of ice the game when the Eagles needed him. So you want to go ahead with Saquon as the MVP?
Yeah, they don't win that game without Saquon Barkley Sunday.
So that's the 5th time or 6th time you've picked the MVP correctly. It's only the 2nd time all season I have. I am now 4-9, Kyle, and you are now 9-4. So we have mirror imaged records as we move into this week. And with that being said, Kyle, let's turn the page. And here we are. Pittsburgh Steelers on Sunday, team that has not won in the city of Philadelphia since 1965, Kyle. But also, we have not beaten Russell Wilson, I believe, ever in his career. So something might have to give on Sunday. The weather in Philly on Sunday is looking like about 44 degrees and cloudy, kind of balmy for a mid-December day. I'll take it. As per the Gridiron database, the Steelers will be going with their white tops, yellow bottoms. They're not releasing what the Eagles are going to be wearing in this game, which again probably will be the black, or maybe it's a black. I don't know, but it'll probably be the midnight greens. Injury report: Kyle Quinn, Sidney Brown. Yesterday was not a participant in practice. Jalen Carter was limited in practice with his shoulder. Blankenship still dealing with the concussion, was limited. Covey dealing with the neck problem, limited. Jalen Hurts, a left finger, but he was a full participant. And the Kobe Dean, his elbow, was also a full participant. Nothing major on the Eagles side of injuries. Kyle Quinn, would you say, heading into this game? Obviously, those that are out, and those that are in are in.
Yeah, and it does look like Blankenship's going to be back just based on him being out there today. Everybody else sort of dealing with minor stuff, rest, all that. The Eagles are definitely coming into this game relatively healthy. As
for those Pittsburgh Steelers, George Pickens is a big one. Hasn't participated all week in practice with a hamstring problem. Larry Ojogonobi The defensive tackle also did not participate. He's dealing with a groin. Deshaun Elliott with the hamstring was a DNP, and Montavious Adams, the defensive tackle, was a full participant, but he is gimped up a little bit by the knee. The George Pickens thing is pretty big, Kyle, if he does not play.
That's a huge thing. I mean, he's their best player on their offense by far. And if you don't have him, which it doesn't look like they will, I think he's listed as doubtful right now. It doesn't usually end up well. You're doubtful on Thursday, and it sounded like Mike Tomlin was preparing to go into this game without him. That's a huge deal. I mean, Mike Williams, Calvin Austin stink. The Steelers receivers, I mean, they got Freiermuth, who's a decent little player, but George Pickens opens up everything. Russell Wilson's been living down the field with some deep shots to George Pickens. So George Pickens is an absolutely massive loss for Pittsburgh in this one.
And with that being said, Kyle, with the Eagles and the Steelers injury reports, with the Steelers going with their white tops and gold bottoms, and they've never won in Philadelphia since 1965, since before I was born, Kyle Quinn, that's a long time ago. And with potentially an overcompensated Eagles offense looking to throw the ball a lot to A.J. Brown, what do you see happening at the Link on Sunday at 4:25?
So I said a little bit earlier that this is a massive juncture in the season, the turning point where we find out, does this team unravel from all this adversity, or do they rally around it? I choose to believe they rallied around it, Matt. I think they lock in.
You do.
They're up for the game against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I actually think they surprise everybody, and they take it to those Steelers on Sunday. I think this is going to be a convincing victory by the Eagles.
Okay, and your three keys to that convincing victory are?
Yep. Well, the first one is focus. Don't let this be a distraction, right? Like I'm hoping, praying beyond belief that this team was able to block out all that stuff and lock in on this Steelers team who's tough, man. They're going to give you a fight. They're a physical football team. You have to be prepared. Focus on the matter at hand, not all the external stuff. Focus on winning another football game. And then I key number two is I don't think they should make a concerted effort to feed A.J. Brown the football. I know the Steelers don't have a great pass defense, but neither did the Carolina Panthers. I just don't think this passing offense is very effective. I think if they come out throwing, they're going to lose the football game. I would stick to your bread and butter, Saquon Barkley, who, even though the Steelers have a good run defense, the Eagles have just out physical teams. They've worn teams down late in games and just kept pounding the rock, sticking to what's working. And key number three is be physical. Be the more physical football team out there on Sunday. Pittsburgh prides themselves in being that team that's going to punch you right in the nose, both on defense and on offense. So I think our offensive line needs to be ready to, road grade a little bit and get Saquon some extra yardage. And I think the defense also needs to be prepared to be physical too. I don't think these wide receivers want any parts of, a big hit by Blankenship or CJ Gardner-Johnson, even Cooper DeJean. I think he has a nice little bounce back game. So I think they need to be physical on both sides of the football. Stick to their bread and butter and don't lose sight of the matter at hand here. And I think they'll be able to come away with one.
Yeah, and Steve says Hurts better not hold the ball too long with TJ Watt coming at him. Run Saquon at Watt. Yeah, or do some RPO or some play action. Do something, man. Deception, baby. All right, Kyle, here's my three keys to Eagles victory. I'll say it till they do it. Get off to a fast friggin' start. But it's number 3 now, Kyle. It's fallen from 1 to 3. I'm starting to accept it, and it's going lower on my list. Yeah, you know what? Listen, I think that the Eagles, even though we sit here and say that they should not get away from what's working, and I agree with you, they shouldn't. I think they are. And I think they're going to make an effort to throw the ball to AJ. They're going to make an effort to throw the ball. The one person in all this that we don't talk about, that all he does is put his goddamn head down and go to work, is Devontae Smith. Yeah. Why can't we have a whole wide receiver core full of him? The way his character is and the way he carries himself. But I think they're going to make a concerted effort to throw the ball. And I'm okay with it, Kyle. I really am. Because they're going to have to do it sooner or later. And honestly, this is now sooner to me. And my number 1 key to Eagles victory is the defense needs to really respond big time. Come back and let's show everybody else that was a aberration, that just was a bump in the road, whatever you want to call it. We've learned from those mistakes that we made against the Panthers, and now we're going to go out and we're going to lock it down. So those are my 3 keys to Eagles victory. Yeah,
and look, man, I really hope that if they do come out throwing the football, that it works. I just don't have any confidence that it's going.
Either do I. But all right, Kyle, give me your prediction, your score, and your MVP.
Yeah, so like I said, I think the Eagles surprise a lot of people, and they take it to the Steelers. I don't think they're going to absolutely blow them out. This feels like a game that's going to be tight in the beginning, just because the Eagles can't start fast to save their lives, and the Steelers have a pretty good defense. So I think this will be close in the beginning. I think the Eagles end up pulling away. I'm going to go 23-13 Eagles.
And your game MVP?
It's going to be Saquon, man.
Yeah.
I choose to believe that they're going to keep pounding the rock and do what's been working.
I got the Eagles winning this game too. I got them winning 28-17, and I have AJ as my actual MVP. I think AJ Brown's going to come back and not necessarily have a great game, because that's what he's destined to do. Is that I think, honestly, without him, without his head exploding, they need to make sure he gets his hands on a lot of footballs for the, I guess, mental health of this team. So I'm going to go with the Eagles 28-17. I actually really think they're going to win this game. If they make an effort to throw to AJ, I'd be okay with it. They do it early and in no huddle, hurry up kind of a way. Yeah, Steve, it makes a point, but now we're looking at going. So, Steve, there's a lot of things to that have to happen that have not happened all season long. They're not going to be able to go down the sidelines every time. AJ's got to go to the middle of the field. They don't throw the ball to the middle of the field, Steve. That's a well-documented fact. And Kyle, I mean, if they do start throwing the football, it's going to have to be to the middle of the field, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, come on, they just can't throw it down the sidelines all game long.
I hope so. I can't for the life of me. I think I've said this before on the show. I can't understand why they don't just constantly run a slant to AJ Brown.
Yeah.
That should be an unstoppable play when you have AJ Brown. I don't understand why they don't do it. But I do think Steve makes a good point about the no huddle. I think the most effective version of this Eagles offense is when they're in rhythm. They're sort of keeping the defense on their heels and making them play more reactionary, not being able to substitute and stuff like that. That's been I think the most effective version of this Eagles offense we've seen all season is when they go hurry up.
You said, it's the question of the night or the question of the week segment. You said that you don't feel that the distractions this year or anything like it was last year when it comes to AJ and then the byproduct of what should happen, right? Going forward, Kyle Quinn, into next season, say they don't win a Super Bowl. Is that a failure for you? I mean, if they don't win a Super Bowl, and if it is, are they? Do we make changes? Do we have to address AJ Brown long term here? Do we have to address Jalen Hurts long term here if they don't win a Super Bowl?
Well, the devil's going to be in the details, obviously. If you have to go into Detroit, you end up losing a close one where Detroit just outclasses you, which they've outclassed everybody all season. Then, that's a little bit different. We'll have some different things to evaluate. If Jalen Hurts throws up all over himself in a moment where he has to throw the ball and AJ Brown's pissed off again, the Eagles might be forced to make a choice between the two. I'll tell you who I'd pick, and that'd be AJ Brown. But I will say, I think barring some sort of first round exit, I think the coach ends up staying.
Yeah.
So, I think a lot of things are on the line, and the devil's going to be in the details. I don't necessarily think it's a total, complete failure if they don't win the Super Bowl, just based off of people's expectations going into this season. Now, obviously, things do change, but I don't sit here right now telling you the Eagles are far and away the best team in the NFL, and they should win the Super Bowl. So I guess I sort of look at it that way. There wouldn't be a colossal failure if they don't win the Super Bowl. I think they're capable of it, but I don't put the Eagles on a different plane than anybody else in the field that can win.
I agree. Well, I don't think they're going to win Super Bowl anyway. But come on, Matty B. It'll be Christmas miracle. Steve, I got the Eagles winning the game. I'm picking them 28-17. So I do think that they're the better team. Tom from Middletown is watching. This is one of your people.
Oh, God. Yeah, Tom's a caller.
Nice mustache. Wow.
Thanks, Tom.
He's asking why you're not taking his calls.
I did take your call, Tom. You call every day. You called you got him at the end of the show today. Jeez.
Don't be airing out your 94 WIP beefs on my show, man. All right. All right, Kyle, listen. Welcome, Tom, by the way. Please, I'll take your calls here every time, man. Everything you want to say, Tom.
I won't.
I will take your call. Even though we don't have a phone board here, we will do we'll take your comment. All right, Kyle Quinn, before I let you go, tell everybody out there where they can find you.
Yep. Well, Tom knows where to find me. It's on the Midday Show,
yes, he does.
10 to 2 every Monday through Friday at 94 WIP. And then, of course, on Twitter at Kyle_Quinn, WIP.
And he'll be back here next week as we will cut the Steelers game up and we will look ahead at the Commanders. And, we lost in all this. Kyle Quinn, the Eagles did clinch a playoff spot, so they're going to the playoffs. So and again, that's the byproduct of this stupid drama, man. We're not focused on football. we're focused on people's feelings right now, and that's not good, Kyle.
No, it's not. I mean, they can also clinch the NFC East this weekend, I believe, if they win and Washington loses. So
That's right.
Things on the line here. Yep.
All right, Kyle. Well, we'll be talking next week, man. You have a good weekend.
All right, buddy. Thanks for having me, Matt. See you, bud.
Yep. Kyle Quinn. Everybody. Kyle Quinn. All right. So that's it, man. I'm done. I'm done talking about the A.J. Brown, Jalen Hurts stuff. I'm done talking about A.J. Brown, Jalen Hurts, and Brandon Graham in a non-football way. I don't care if they're friends. I don't care if they hate each other. I don't care if they, I don't care. Go out and do your damn job. Go out and earn that paycheck. Go out and earn your $1.6 million game check there, Jalen Hurts. And I don't care if you don't have to like the guy in order to throw the football to him, right? And the homers out there, all you homers, and you know who you are, they don't have to be best friends. This team does not have to be singing around a campfire every single night with each other in order to win a Super Bowl. That's not a prereq in winning a Super Bowl, is to be best friends. It's not. It's a business, all right? You go out there and you do your job, and you go home at the end of the night and you hang out with the people you do like. That's how it is. So this fascination with the Eagles' personal lives and the way these players, interact with each other off the field, so to speak, is ridiculous. Who cares? Who cares what they do when they're not between the tackles? Who cares what they do when they're not calling plays? Listen, it's their lives. They're human beings. Not everyone's going to get along. Please. Let's leave that thing the way it is. And Tom from Middletown, you call all your 94 WIP people over there that I will be here to take your calls anytime you want. Yeah, I care. WIP doesn't. I do. All right, everybody, let's now go to the final segment of my show. Take a look at how I did in Week 14, folks. That's right, Week 14, and then I'll give you my Week 15 picks. My Week 14 record was 10-3, another dominant week of picking games. 10-3, third week in a row that I was 10-3. Now 122-83 on the season. Heading into Week 15, here are my picks. I'm going with the Eagles against the Steelers on Sunday. I like the Rams beating the 49ers tonight. Give me Kansas City all day against Cleveland and twice on Sunday. Give me Cincinnati over Tennessee. I like Washington over the Saints. Baltimore over the Giants. Carolina will beat Dallas Cowboys. The Jacksonville Jaguars over the Jets. Miami over, New England there? Give me Denver over Indy. Detroit over Buffalo. Arizona will beat New England. The Chargers will beat Tampa. Green Bay over Seattle. Give me Minnesota over Chicago on Sunday night, and the Falcons over the Raiders on Monday Night Football. Who scheduled the Falcons and Raiders for a Monday night game on Week 15? Oh Lord, man! But here we go. So that was no one thinks like that in this TikTok era. Everyone wants everyone to skip and hold hands and get a trophy no matter what. Go do your job. I 100% agree on this one. Yeah, Steve, listen, it's not a prereq, man. It isn't. And there's a lot of homers out there. And I'm not, well, Steve, you're a homer. I mean, let's just call you what you are. But I don't think you're a slobbering homer. There's a difference. That for some reason, they want to think that there's like some sort of Xanadu world that all these players are living in together where they're best friends. It doesn't have to be like that. And I don't care if they are or if they aren't best friends. I played competitive sports my entire life. I went to combat with people that I couldn't stand personally. But you know what? I defended their back. I made sure they didn't get killed. They made sure I didn't get killed. So, we put those things aside to get through the mission, to get through the actual job that we had to do. At the end of the day, we can go back and say, screw you and whatever. But at the end of the day, we put the mission first. So that I 100% agree with that take. Folks, it's going to wrap me up. I want to thank Kyle Quinn for once again coming back here on the Birds Blast. Every week, he's a great contributor to the Birds Blast, and every week for the last 5 years, we've been doing this show during the Eagle season. We'll continue doing it throughout the rest. Don't forget, later on tonight, after the Flyers game here on the network, you got Sal G. He'll be taking you home with the Clear the Ice program, as he has you for the Red Wings tonight. And then later on tonight, right after the post-game show, I will be there with my show, the Final Word with Matty B. We'll take you into your late Thursday night as we will wrap up our broadcasting week of the show tonight. So we have a lot going on. Please stay with us throughout today, tomorrow, and the weekend, because we got our post-game Eagles show too. The Birds Flyby as well. So we'll talk later on tonight. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your evening, and we'll see you.
I'll be coming up hot for a minute. Everybody know the drop when I'm in it. I drop the top when I'm in it. Everybody know the drop when I'm in it. Yeah, I go so yo. Everybody know I'm you know when the click through to the send this possibly a so be fine.